So I saw this video in my recommended feed. It looked like rage bait, so I simply removed it from my recommended section. As it turns out, I was sort of right, but I still wondered, is there any actual discussion of masculinity in gaming? Well, there's tutorials that try to discuss it with Final Fantasy 16.
No.
So why not talk about it in a slightly serious manner? So, as usual, let's go!
Head to the go-go, baby!
My weird opinion is that video games are often linked with other forms of media, especially comics and animation, since video games are animated. Take a look at Valis cutscenes and tell me it's not influenced by 80s anime. When the NES came out, we got our 80s big buff action heroes, Contra, Double Dragon, etc. However, other games like Zelda had androgynous characters that look like they came from a shonen manga. Or the even more weird Super Mario, which was greatly inspired by Western animation. They still had the fixation on making most video game heroes masculine. Look at this thing. Do I care about its masculinity? No. Unfortunately, most publishers tried making games more American and more masculine. Megaman was a victim of this, but other kids' games weren't. I feel like Sonic or the Mario games helped destigmatize the use of more Japanese colorful box art, while gaming stayed mostly a boys' club affair. It was mostly an American thing. Pac-Man's target audience was couples after all. So a lot of the time, some colorful cute games from Japan stayed in Japan, unfortunately. The thing about the start of the Super NES era is that the game's stories were very simple, and since Mario saved the princess, might as well do that again. The thing is that feminine characters evolved during this era, becoming less characters that need to be saved and more supporting characters, while a lot more games allowed you to play as feminine characters despite being hard-boiled. Streets of Rage as girl, Golden Axe as girl. That doesn't make anyone less masculine or badass. It still is disappointing that cuter looking games ended up not being localized or changed entirely. Tetris Attack being a localization of Panel del Pon, or Dr. Robotnik's Being Mean Machine being a localization of Puyo Puyo, and Twin Bee just not appearing on English shores. But then something happened.
It seems today that all you see is
Violence. Video games tried experimenting more with darker themes despite Nintendo censoring stuff. Also violent, so violent titles like Mortal Kombat or Return to Castle Wolfenstein gave a good reason for the ESRB to exist, even though they clearly were having a hard time rating all of these games. Due to that, video games became synonymous with violence, and due to the rise of the punks or the extreme stuff in the mainstream, teens were craving for the forbidden. So violent first-person shooters were all the rage and defined peak masculinity, since it was forbidden to children. But the thing is that actual children like my friends did not care whether you would play GoldenEye or Star Fox. A fun game for a child is a fun game. For me it was Quest 64 and Glover, while for others it was Jak and GTA. Yeah, well, I was actually scared of ratings as a kid. Like, one time The Simpsons was on, and since it was rated 13 age and up, I kinda panicked. And the worst part is that I watched Little Nicky's trailer over and over again. Yep, that's me. Either way, while these shooters became more and more popular, there was Duke Nukem.
Wow, that's a lot of words. Too bad I'm not reading them.
Duke Nukem is sort of a parody of 80s hypermasculine archetypes, so it was a joke. A pretty funny joke, I have to admit. Serious Sam did the same joke a few years later. It was a sort of way to poke fun at men who overperformed masculinity. An evolution of the evil bully jock stereotype that plagued the 2000s and beyond. So most main male protagonists looked normal in mainstream video games. Not too masculine, not too feminine. Even though normal Bishonen protags were a bit too feminine, according to Western game journalists. You have no idea how painful it can be reading these old magazines sometimes, except Nintendo Power, surprisingly. But hey, that did not stop Final Fantasy from selling a lot on PS1 and on PS2. Final Fantasy X criticizes the toxic aspects of masculinity. Not only is this game about men crying, but it also is about the toxic aspects of romance seen from the male gaze. It also is about the expectations of masculinity men are given, especially by some fathers. Final Fantasy X is art. Do I need to talk about Kingdom Hearts 2? It's about boys endlessly crying and sharing their feelings. No wonder it has such a big fandom. Men here are as masculine as K-pop stars, which was refreshing to see in the 2000s, but is now more commonly accepted, I think. The titles from Ratchet and Dank memes are mostly about criticizing American consumerism. But as Captain Quark, which is also a parody of super masculine heroes. Even the movie, where he has a redemption arc, he can be masculine and be himself, but also can do a lot better. Ratchet, meanwhile, is just an average guy. Just an average car mechanic who wants to do better and can do better. Most heroes from gaming in the 2000s were simply average looking. Just someone who the audience could latch into. For example, Sly Cooper and his friends are very average looking, which helps the audience relate to them a lot. The game also poked fun at the objectification of women in media, while at the very least, Sly Cooper treats Carmelita Fox very well. Again, from what I've remembered, but I'll see about that in editing. Jack, especially 2 and 3, tried doing a Beavis and Butthead, but kind of failed. Dexter is a pervert who wants desperately to fulfill the masculine stereotype of objectifying women and trying to score. So we're supposed to laugh at him, but at the same time the text kinda agrees with him, objectifying women accidentally with some camera angles. So I guess it's the writer's fault? It hasn't aged as bad as other stuff. But I mean, come on! This is a result of a lot of post-feminist writing, especially in 2000s cartoon. A lot of post-feminine writing can be pretty good, but some parts can feel pretty icky. Again, the media isn't really bad, it's just that some parts are a bit weird. Not every anime is timeless neither, and just because something can be seen as problematic doesn't mean it's bad automatically. But hey, you can understand where most of the early 2000s writing came from. Another aspect is that everyone could be a bad-grass. So bad-grass did not just mean masculine anymore, and that was a great start, I think. I mean, Kirby ads during the 90s were about how cute and dangerous the puffball was. The power of Kirby is more important than the power of masculinity, after all. That's not talking about Lara Croft, who could be bad grass and hot. But then again, there still weren't that many feminine protags. I mean, there were more than there ever was before, but not that much. I'd also say that the JRPG fever calmed down a bit, but the SMT/Persona franchise showed that the game had more to offer. It even integrated more dating sim elements in the form of social links. So people could still have some soft-boiled protags, but make them feel even more alive than before. As much as a first-person and third-person shooters gained a lot of notoriety during that era with manlier characters, such as Master Chief, who is silent, or Marcus, who got made fun of for being too masculine. There were plenty of other titles that weren't like that. Sure, Kratos can seem a bit bland unless you're looking for some fun cheesy action, which includes quick time events about, the birds and the bees.
You like jazz?
But on the other end, we got Professor Layton, which feels like a 70s anime, which is both old and fresh despite him acting like a British 80s gentleman. He still gets to cry, fortunately, and aside from that gentleman standard, only his clothes are truly masculine.
Shut up, Luke. Shut up, Luke.
He's not even a womanizer, he's just a gentleman out to help people. Sure, some people are going to say that being a gentleman is kind of problematic. However, compared to the rest of the masculine heroes of the 2000s, that Professor Layton still feels fresh. While the introduction of Emmy sort of helped reveal another side of this personality. During that era, you get also some scruffy detectives like Kyle Hyde or Jake Hunter. Manly stoic detectives, which Gumshoe from Ace Attorney is a parody of. Granted, Gumshoe is not the most observant person, nor is he always nice, but as an antithesis to most detectives, I've sort of grown to love him. Phoenix Wright is more of a B-shonen character who isn't really masculine at all. Except maybe in Apollo Justice, where he gets to be kind of a loner. Still, that makes him a very neat protagonist. As for other DS games,
Agents are go!
look at the lead beat agents. What was in Nuendan a masculine cheer squad became a bunch of groovy masculine agents, unless you want to play on hard with cheerleaders. A positive vision of masculinity that consists of helping people through the power of singing and dancing. It's probably to do that its marketing failed, leaving us with a cult classic that gave birth to Osu. Certainly a groovy but very interesting take on masculinity, kinda similar to Parappa.
This is where I watch my parents die, Parappa.
This is where you watch your parents die.
But the difference is that Parappa is more about his quest for love than anything else. I like how he's the one who compares himself with masculine standards, although Jochin still is an armless doofus. Parappa should stop comparing himself with other masculine expectations. But he gets over it by rapping. Heck yeah, Parappa! Heck yeah! I need more Parappa though. Too bad we're not getting any. I just realized I forgot about Kanji. Basically, this guy's story arc in Persona 4 is about how he pushes a traditional type of masculinity to the point where he's afraid of being gay. It's a pretty cool story arc that's even better when you think about the perspective of a teenager. A very insecure teenager even. But then you're not sure if he's bi or straight. We get a bunch of gay jokes, but that's kind of it. Still, it's an interesting way to explore masculinity and its standard during the very brown edgy 360 era. I already talked about Makoto from Enchanted Arms being a cool gay, but the way he's not considered a punchline, especially when the closest to a queer character is mostly in gaming. Look at this funny gay! Enchanted Arms is cool. As for masculinity, there was this clear contrast between PS360 games and Wii DS games. The thing is that oftentimes Wii DS titles weren't considered real games by capital G gamers. It was the war between the edgy gamer boys and the filthy casuals. So every gamer boys channeled their energy into hating less masculine games, aka Candy Crush, Wii Sports, Angry Birds, etc. Those mobile games are made for girls, not for boys. Why are gamers like this? I don't know. Probably because they think it validates their masculinity. Same reasons why colorful games were blasted in the 2000s. And associate that with a beautiful cocktail of motion controls and boom, it's a sad gamer now. I want to feel masculine while doing nothing but using my thumbs. A capital G gamer, probably. It's kind of a weird attitude to have, when most first/third-person shooters, aside from maybe Gears of Wars, were made to be very accessible, and were often played by casual PS360 players. But it looks realistic and has violence, so I guess it is masculine? It's the same as if I told you Nintendo Power was manly, since the writers made a Mr. T joke. Oh yeah, Mr. T! So of course, most colorful games that weren't masculine were blasted by gamer boys online, while the actual people who played them enjoyed them. It is one of the many reasons that the GameCube got a lot of hate online. But the people who had a GameCube were like, that's pretty cool stuff. Probably. So here we go again. There was also a lot of cel shading in the early 2000s, so a lot of critics decided to complain about it, especially Zelda fans. As for my personal opinion about the colorful games of that era, is that me and my friends were mostly into JRPG/platforming games, so aside from some weird jokes made about minorities from one of my siblings' exes, there rarely was any shame about these characters not being manly enough. Like, there was this one silver joke I'm embarrassed to think about, and my god, you couldn't pay me to rewatch the Sonic Paradox videos. But yeah, that was it. The topic of masculinity rarely came up in our conversation. I say it was more in 2013 that I have received a lot of weird anti-gay comments, both from my abusers and people in the otaku community. It feels like it's kind of dumb since most of these shows/games kind of are about acceptance. People suck, I guess. I'd say while people in gaming always had weird tendencies, the whole gaming is emasculated starting when the SJWs, aka just minorities existing, began to be more visible in fandoms, while BuzzFeed was BuzzFeed. I'd also say that Japanese devs appealing more to otakus post Persona 3-4 imposed the standard of being a boy means you can score with any girl, while Western games were just like, you can date anyone, who cares? Hence why girls in Japanese otaku games had to look conventionally attractive. Or else it makes the Bishonen pretty boy protag less manly and the girls look like boys, and the customers won't buy the $600 figurines nor the body pillows. But as much as otakus were growing in numbers,
Garugamesh! Anime!
Yeah, and manga!
with tourney games being much more accessible, queer people started participating in these fandoms. So while mainstream titles were stagnating a bit, indies were gaining a lot of popularity. So because of that, companies started taking a wider diversity of subjects with a larger audience. So I'd say while the questioning masculinity was often a subject in gaming, having more feminine protagonists allowed players to see masculinity from another angle. That doesn't mean that there aren't any masculine protagonists that are allowed to be themselves, but more angles means more type of masculinity. But the truth is that I don't play these kinds of games. I'm too busy playing Baccarat and calling in my game of the year to even care. Look at how masculine and DEI-free this Tanuki is. Also, the fact that Ashley avoided the culture war is a miracle. So yeah, I don't play modern games very much. However, there are so many video games that there are so many various depictions of masculinity. I feel like simply sticking to the AAA titles does not encapsulate masculinity in modern video games. From Pepino, to Alan Wake, to Anton, to Kratos, to Contra, baby! I played the Contra demo when it was shadow dropped, and holy carp! Look at these beefy masculine men with guns! You can even play as girls if you want, but either way, I loved Contra 4, I think. Wait, actually, I think it's the wrong title. Either way, masculinity has never been so varied to the point where I don't feel like there is a lack of it, like in Contra. Maybe in AAA titles I don't care about, but I don't feel like it changed that much. Maybe characters don't objectify women as much, but from what I've seen, I would describe most of our new protags as normal, in parentheses. Maybe people don't think video games are masculine enough, because the antagonists are often men, like in most video games since the 1980s. Oh, hi Donkey Kong. I kinda like you, Donkey Kong. So I don't think masculinity has changed much since the 2000s. It just shares space with femininity and other stuff. And if you don't care about modern video games because it's not masculine enough, go play older titles. That's what I do all the time. I love Phantasy Star Online so much. I love Chibi-Robo. I love The Legend of Dragoon. If there's a lesson to learn from these games, it's that nobody is stopping you from being masculine neither. Just don't be annoying about it. I'm not a man, nor do I need to fit anyone's standards for masculinity. You don't neither. And if you think you're a man, you're a man. And you can be the one you want. Whether you look like Parappa, Makoto, Kratos, Jack, etc. If you think you're a man, be one. Be yourself. And if you don't think you're a man, just don't be one. I'm not a man. I don't care. Either way, thank you for watching and please like and subscribe if you need more content from me. Bye!